Hello everybody, John Felt here, and this is the weekly weather briefing, May 5th, 2019. Well, a whole lot going on for the last couple weeks over the middle U.S. regarding severe weather, but particularly very heavy rain and flooding. That was the story a couple weeks ago. It was the story this past week, and it looks like it's going to be the story for the next couple weeks. And you can see last week some very heavy rain once again right smack over the middle part of the nation. Anywhere from 1 to over 5 inches of rain. And this has compounded the flooding situation over many areas. Now, I've been mentioning the reason for this focus in the same areas because we've had these thermal and temperature boundaries with some really moist air. This is the dew point measure of the amount of moisture in the lower atmosphere, 60s and even 70 in spots. That's pretty soupy air over the southeast, South Texas. Then we get some really drier air over the upper Midwest. So right along that boundary, we have had all the action. And you can see it more in the average temperature over the last week. Look at this here. Really mild air here, warmer air, and cold air up in this region, and right along that boundary is where the action's been. And that boundary is anchored by the upper jet stream that's sort of flowing parallel to that, so it's not pushing it too much one way or the other. Now, it will a little bit this week with the colder air winning, but it's just temporary. So rivers are really active. They're running above flood stage north to south right through the middle U.S. We've heard about the Missouri and the Mississippi. I've been talking about that for quite some time, and East Texas now is getting very, very active. As far as the crest here, the area right in this region here was the area where crests came very close to record, and a few spots did reach a new record. The river is crested and falling, and now the flood wave is coming through this reach of the river over the next couple days, and eventually it'll work all the way down into the lower Mississippi, where we're going to be having high flows above flood stage really until further notice, most likely into June. Okay, so as far as soil temperatures go for agriculture, it's been very frustrating over the upper Midwest. The central and upper portions of the Corn Belt, not only have we had cooler temperatures, but we've had these cooler soil temperatures, and generally we're looking at 50s or even 60 before we start to get germination, and you can see how far away that is. But also fields, and this is probably even more important, fields are so wet in many of these areas. And you can see that right here. The areas in dark green or blue are soil moisture indicators, and it's really showing how wet these fields are. So many parts of the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Missouri, we really could use some drying and some warmer temperatures to help dry out those soils. Well, if you look at this jet stream pattern here, you see this dip in the jet stream that comes through. It's transitory, but there is a dip in the jet stream right here, and that's going to bring in some cooler air, and that's not ideal for agriculture in that area. And you can see that cooler air pushing in and lingering. This goes out 14 days, so really in the middle U.S., we're looking at cooler temperatures, cooler than normal, and it looks like the greatest magnitude of those colder than normal temperatures is right through this stretch right here. But we're looking at that right through the next 2 weeks, probably in week 2, the latter part of week 2, not as significant, but still large parts of the country below normal. Now, the one area that's not is going to be the Pacific Northwest, especially early in the period. Look at the temperature anomalies in this region. We're looking at well above normal temperatures in the Pacific Northwest. As far as rainfall, and I think the weather risk this week, it's going to be right in the middle U.S. Remember that this area in East Texas received 2 to 4 inches and locally more last week, another 5 to 7 inches. So I think we're really talking about excessive rainfall and flood threat over East Texas, far southeast Oklahoma, southern Arkansas, Louisiana, and then some surrounding states. Really looks like we're going to be having a flood threat in those areas. This area up here, we certainly don't want this with rivers running so high, 2 to 4 inches, and the impact in that region is going to be continued saturated fields, which is going to delay spring planting, and also issues with the rivers. This is an image that shows on Wednesday the setup. Here's this area of low pressure and steady soaking rain up to the north of it. Now, I wanted to show you where this rain is going to fall here. It's expanded a bit since yesterday, but most of it is going to be over the Missouri. So this part of the Missouri right through here is probably going to see another flood wave coming down this week. And then this rain here is going to affect these rivers that were just high before. Now the question will be how much more they'll come back up, because they're falling quite a bit. We'll have to watch that very closely. I do think it's going to reverse the recession. I don't think it's likely that we're going to get as high as we've seen, but again, they're running so high now. That's a very critical situation, and I'll be monitoring that very closely throughout the week. Okay, 6 to 10 and 8 to 14. Well, the story as far as temperature is going to be this very big pool of cooler air that's going to dominate a large part of the nation. The exception, again, will be the Pacific Northwest right through the next 2 weeks with above normal temperatures. As far as precipitation goes, it looks like things will settle down in the 6 to 10 day range over the middle U.S. With cold and stable air, cooler and stable air. But south of that boundary, it looks very active again over Texas and Louisiana. Matter of fact, I wanted to point out precipitation hazards here. I think I discussed the 3 to 7 day pretty good with this area of rain here, one, and then this area of rain here, the second area. But what I wanted to point out, it's very rare to have a week 2 high risk of heavy rain. And look at this. This is week 2, again, the same area. So, like I said, Texas and areas around that really do look like they're going to be under the gun. So, river flood gives you a little idea. The red is where the main stem rivers, the highest flood risk. And again, we're going to have some strong to severe storms throughout the week. Right now, the Storm Prediction Center has slight risks, doesn't have anything above that, but we'll have to keep an eye on it. But it does have that along the cold front and then down in the south central U.S. So a very active week over the middle U.S. again. I think the main threat is going to be excessive rain and flooding, and then cooler air pushing in and dominating behind a cold front moving through. That's this week's weather briefing. Have a great week.